I'm so glad that you reached out and that we're getting to connect and meet each other. And I'm Sarah. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm a somatic coach. And we'll just get to, yeah, kind of get to know each other a little bit more on this call. Will you share, your name and anything you initially want to share about just how you're coming in? Or
Sure. So I'm Sayre, I use she, her pronouns. I'm a single mom of two kids. And I started and run my own tech company, partly because I'm a single mom with two kids. And
yeah,
I've been in the tech and video game development space as an artist and an engineer for 15 years now, and was just consistently disappointed at how little space there was for someone who I'm quite capable and multi-talented, but that often somehow seems to result in more expectations and even less flexibility around that, rather than sort of respecting that, yeah, I can do this because I have this complicated life and I need to make space for my kids. And so kind of decided, all right, I need to make that space for myself if I want to prioritize them while doing this. And
yeah.
yeah, that brought me to where I am here today. My company is SkillSaige, and we're focused on. I'm a big tech nerd. I'm a big, history buff around the history of computing, and it's been very frustrating to watch the rise of AI and this rush into the sort of lowest hanging fruit that is both the least value and largest social damage. And I'm like, hey, can we learn from history? We've done this twice with the internet and microcomputers, and like I feel like we can skip this step, and there's just not a lot of energy for that. So I decided, all right, I'll do it myself. And we worked
Mm,
really hard to build a system that's about bringing people together and lifting them up with soft skills training that becomes accessible and something you can practice daily. But we've also worked really hard to make sure that we use an AI in a way that's responsible and sustainable and scalable. And we're really proud of the work we've done. I'm really proud of my team. They've put in a lot of hard work to get there over the last year and a half, and it's been really good to see that start to come together. Makes me really hopeful for the future.
good. How big is your team, or what is the size of your team?
So we are a remote first company.
Okay.
And like I said, I would be a bit of a hypocrite if I was like, okay, I needed flexibility, but no one else can have it. So
Yeah.
we take a very atypical approach to that. And this has kind of always been my philosophy in the space. Before I did this, I was the director at a game development studio, and had a very similar approach and kind of got to refine it there. And so our core team is uh, right now, I think it's about, I would say our core team is 4 people, but our full
Okay.
team is it varies between 12 and 18 people,
Okay.
because we work with people wherever they are in the world, whatever their flexibility was like. And that means we actually work with a lot of people who prefer being freelancers and bringing their skills to multiple places. And
Mhm.
we see them as equal members of our team and our, so while our leadership team is 4 people, our actual team is all over the world. Some of them are part-time, some of them are freelance and solve specific problems when they're needed. Some of them are working every day to move things forward. But it's it's amazing how much you can get done when you empower and support people to be effective in the way they're most effective, as opposed to just like butt in seat during these hours, no exceptions.
Yeah,
It's really
absolutely.
cool to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you've been doing it for a year and a half, you said?
Yeah, so we're about a year and a half
Okay.
into this now, and
Okay.
this stems from the game studios actually partnered with us on this because we use SkillSage is it's fully 3D, it's multi-platform, so it uses a lot of video game
Mm.
technology in it. And uh,
Oh, cool.
before this, had a background kind of in doing consulting work and freelance, doing a lot of bespoke work in the training and VR space, and realized like, oh, there's a real need here for something a little more accessible and universal. And
Mhm.
I think we can do it really well. And that's kind of what brought us to here.
Awesome. That's very cool. And
Yeah.
how old are your kids?
So my daughter is 13. She's going to turn 14 this year. And my son just turned 9. So
Are they into like video games and kind of the things you do? Yeah.
yeah, we one of our favorite things to do as a family. We actually have family LAN party nights. Like it's 2003. We have obviously I have being a developer, I have a bunch of different
Hmm.
test machines all over, and so we spread them out all over the house. And
Really?
They're really into repo right now, so we'll order a pizza and some sodas and just play repo together over that. It's very fun. Yeah, my daughter's definitely leans more. She's big on Tamagotchi life right now, and my son adores repo, and then like I think Peak is his other big one he really likes right now. So it's
Okay.
games, but they very much one Percy leans much more like cozy kind of life sim, and Azrael's much more, challenge and puzzle focused, and it's
Mm.
uh, sort of see their personalities come in that as they explore that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a really fun family time and time to connect. And yeah, I mean, you're in this world that I know very little about, like even video games, right? Like I'm 41 and, it's late millennial, like Prince of Persia and like Mario
Yeah,
Brothers. And, I
absolutely.
have recently like been like, is that still available anywhere?
Oh, we love that too. I'm 35, so a
Mhm.
little more mid-millennial
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but and I actually grew up with a lot more of that era of stuff just
Okay.
because the people like grandparents had
Hmm.
a Nintendo Entertainment System, so the original
Hmm.
one, and a Sega Genesis. And so that was kind of where a lot of my
Hmm.
first experiences were. And it's
Yeah.
fun. We actually play a lot of old games like that as a family. I make sure to keep a lot of those systems around just so they can get that experience of like, hey kids, this is where it started and this is where it came. And
Yeah.
like look at how expansive and creative people are when you give them
Yeah.
things to play with. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's always
Yeah.
very fun.
Absolutely. Well, there's a whole world, with that. And I was just even thinking about how you mentioned like history, right? And just like how that the ways we forget, I feel like that is so important as it relates to tech. It's so important as it relates to like my work. And like first I wanted to just kind of check in on what drew you into having a conversation with a somatic practitioner, like how yeah,
Yeah.
just what do you know about somatics, how, embodiment work, how does that like fit into your life,
I know
and
it
maybe even
sounds
your journey.
it sounds so contradictory. I know.
Like,
This was something I was really
yeah,
personally engaged
yeah,
in, and
yeah,
invested in doing was looking for like more, yeah, this type of more
yeah,
community connections to talk with
yeah,
and for us we do this because I
yeah.
I really firmly believe so a little kind of both sides. I have both a background in engineering, but also in
Okay,
art. I
okay.
studied electrical engineering with an emphasis on processor systems at CSU, but I also have a
Mm.
BFA in illustration with an
Oh,
emphasis on
awesome.
production design from
Okay.
RemCAD. And so my whole professional career has been this sort of right brain, left brain balance. And I've been very
Mm.
determined never to sacrifice either side because I really love what we can do as people when we sort of allow those sides. We're told so often that you're either one or the other, right? And that they just
Yeah,
don't work together. I mean, that's in so many, whether it's tech, whether it's games, whether it's entertainment, we're told, both sides of the production house, they just don't get along. And so you need the managers to
yeah,
cross over. And so it's been a real big part for me of like, no, actually, those things are not so different. I think they're much closer than we give them credit for. And I think when we treat them as wholly alien, we do ourselves a discredit too. But from that, as well as I've gone through this and I've been in the startup space and the video game space, which are both notorious for sort of hustle culture and grind and these just very unsustainable practices that maybe you could kind of get away with it 30 years ago, but now like we've got so much research that like this just isn't even mathematically productive. Like, why are we still
hmm,
doing this performance? There's no basis for it. And
yeah.
so I think coming from that sort of whole brain approach to things, my real specialty is systems engineering, learning to
Hmm.
see a system as all of its parts and making sure they're all working as well as they can with resources, however limited that you have. And
Hmm.
I approach that in actually doing my work too. Of I'm really big for my teams and myself of we don't want to subscribe to a way of doing things just because it's the socially acceptable or the socially beneficial way of doing things.
Hmm.
We want to sit down and actually go, well, what's sustainable? What's healthy? What can let us do our best work? What can empower everyone to do the most? And sometimes that looks different. When we were building the game I was working on at that studio, we had 4-day work weeks and we massively outproduced every other studio we talked to. It was incredible how much we got done because we were able to, creative work is exhausting and you need that time to recharge. And then everybody could come in and be really excited, be like, oh my God, I want to solve all these problems. And I think we're so out of touch often, especially in this space where your job is often sitting at a computer. We're so out of touch of how in tune with what we're doing are we right now? I think it's almost been like normalized, the like, okay, and then I just sort of sit here and stare at my screen for 45 minutes and call that work because and it's like, okay, or you could get up and go take a walk and you'll be better off for it. And so that's the other side for me, that something I'm really passionate about is just that like looking at our assumptions of what's sort of this become, and it's systemically enforced. I could go down on why it's
That's not a rabbit hole, so you could go down.
Paul's everything. But really looking at that and just going, hey, what is really necessary? What is really beneficial? And then what really nourishes us and benefits us as people? Because at the end of the day, it's people that make things. And if we want to make the best things we can, we have to take care of ourselves in the process. And man, that makes me a really just what an outlier in space. I get a lot of, even to hint at these things, I get looked at like I have three heads in a lot of these spaces. And I'm like, I mean, the work speaks for itself. So
Isn't
you can take a
it
look at
wild? It's like, yeah, three heads because you're mentioning care. Like we need
that.
to check in with ourselves a little bit throughout the day.
Yeah.
We're not actually machines. Our bodies, right? They are being created, right? But we
Yeah.
breathe. We have a heart. We have this flesh. We have, our moods, our
Yeah.
energy. We have our emotions. We have all these things that actually, right,
We're
matter,
all
and they need.
different in that too. I think,
Yeah.
for me, I am far more productive in the evenings. I don't
Hmm.
function well at all in the mornings. Part of that might be having kids and just to got used
Yeah.
to like, all right, morning routine, let's go. But like
Yeah.
for me, that means my days are often kind of flipped around where I don't really work in the mornings. I tend to do more of my own stuff, my own time there, either taking care of the kids or doing my own things, and then working in
Hmm.
the afternoons, and then spending time with the kids, and then working in the evenings after they're in bed, because that fits my rhythm more naturally, and I can get a lot more done that way. And so,
Yeah.
whereas, my co-founder and my head of operations, he's a morning guy. He's up at 6 a.m. and he's on the East Coast, so it's 4 a.m. for me. And he's like grinds through everything, he powers through, and then he's like done at 3 or 4 because he's like, yeah, I'm not productive anymore. But
Yeah.
he gets so much more done that way. And so it's even just little simple things where if you just take that step back and go, wait a minute, what actually works for me? And it's not an easy switch. I think that's been one of the hardest things over the years is we bring people onto teams and into workspaces, and people just like almost can't believe it when you say that. They're like, I've heard that, but you don't really mean it. You really do want me available at every minute. I'm like, I really don't. I'm not going to be impressed. I'm
Hmm.
gonna shut off your account and make you take a break if you keep doing this.
Mm. Mm.
And then,
Yeah.
once they come out the other side, and then, oh my God, this is so much better. I can't believe this. So yeah, I think it's something it's just very overlooked, but it makes sense because it's also scary and different and hard. And there is an adjustment period. And I think that can be a quick reason to discount things, especially in the tech world of like, well, if it doesn't work right away, why would we do it? We should just keep doing what we're doing. Okay.
Oh, there's so many pieces that I mean, so many pieces to pull out from what you're saying. And,
I know. You
I
can
mean,
tell I'm very passionate about this. So
I know. And even just like the pieces of like, that if it doesn't work, like, even just the space to like embrace that that's okay. Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I'm just saying like that's okay. And how do we have just a little bit more space and in our day, in the product cycle, whatever, for those things to be there and to be okay, right? Like I think that's an interesting thing, like this idea of like the tension or the conflict or the difference, those things actually being okay and like welcomed and like, embraced versus like there's no space, no capacity for anything that doesn't go exactly the way like we think it's supposed to go. So yeah, but I want to go like back to this, like what you mentioned about like the right and left brain, because I think that's a
Yeah.
really important piece. I remember attending a a training years ago by another coach, and it really was underlying like the importance and like the research that also backs how important it is for us to have these creative,
Mm.
processes, right? Whether that's art
Yes.
or music or
Yeah.
singing or dance or whatever it is, something that just activates that, and how that makes helps people to be more effective, more, more creative, more all the things, right? Um, so I love that that is something that has continued to, it sounds like, just been part of, your evolution and your
Yeah.
career and your life. I think that that would be incredible if that was part of more of a, like, more people, right? And I
Wow.
think it probably is, for different folks, um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many things, and again, just like with the history and the forgetting our history and the just like, I mean, I always think one of my, if I had a magic wand, it would be like, I would wish that we all just got more healing in our families, in our workplaces, kind of just, I feel like we need more healing of the things that we have forgotten, we've, ignored, that have just been
That's
stuffed
a big one.
under,
Yeah.
again, on our individual level, but our systems level, our, like there's just so much, right? Um and that to me clearly shapes, how where we're at right now, right? Like there's just a
Yeah.
lot that we um that whether we are aware of it or not, it's still shaping us, right? Like when
Exactly.
um
I see that a
so
lot. I think I'd be
mhm,
curious to hear your perspective
mhm,
from working with people from sort of the other side of this, of
yeah,
working, as a leader, working with people in a professional sphere with my team,
mhm,
dozen people. And I spend time at this point, we're still at a scale where I can take time for each person I work with
mhm,
and
mhm,
you know, equip them and see how they're doing. But I noticed that resistance where people they identify the problem and then they jump right into like, and I want to fix it. And I'm like,
yeah,
Okay, that's good. But how are you going to fix it if you don't know where it came from? How are you going to
mhm,
fix it if you don't know what's causing it? I think you're just going to end up patching over it, and that's probably just going to make it worse in the long run. And it sounds like such a simple statement, in practice, say like, oh, well, you have to understand where problems came from to fix them. And everyone generally agrees with that. But when then the time comes to really sit down and go, no, no, we have to dig in and figure out where this came from. That to me always then triggers this like, wait, what? Wait, what? What do you mean? I guess I agreed in the abstract. I didn't really think about
yeah,
this in the
yeah,
in the
yeah,
explicit.
yeah. That's a great question. Healing, I believe, like many things, right? It means different things to each of us, um, and even with that journey, what is needed. But I definitely, when I kind of started some of my journey, like fixing it was definitely something I was like, yeah, let's fix it. Like there's something that's wrong, I need to fix it.
Mhm.
And now how I think of it is kind of like, for some of us, I believe that we might go, like, we might be really curious about wanting to go back and understand things and kind of make some space for them, right?
Yeah.
And that might be something really important and really necessary, at whatever time in our lives, right? And I also think that we don't always like for some folks, or like that there are still ways that we can support ourselves, even if that's not the path that we're doing. I also now see it as like we can just start to pay attention to like what's getting in our way right now, and like what are even the smallest things that we can do to support that. Like it doesn't have to be this like big deep work always. It can also be like these small things that we're just kind of slowly integrating in, like
Yeah.
smaller shifts. We're slowly integrating in
Mm.
more ease. Like whatever those things are that we feel like we're needing and wanting, like we can start to slowly like allow try to see what, notice like, oh, what's getting what's stopping
Yeah.
this, and like how can I like I use the phrase a lot, drop by drop. How can we drop by drop like let in a little bit more of, you know something different.
That's
Yeah.
really valuable. No, because I think I noticed that a lot. And actually, I think this comes back to like the hustle culture thing of
Yeah.
there's almost more value in what you say in that space because the actual product is impossible. You can't do that much productive work, no matter how much you want to claim it, no matter how much you want to play
Hmm.
act it. I mean, it's sort of the big unspoken secret that a lot of, CEOs in the tech industry, they go, oh, I work
Hmm.
70 hours a week. I'm like, yeah, because you're golfing for 30 of them and you're counting that as a meeting because there's somebody else there you might do a business deal with at some point.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
you're not creating. That's not possible. We've seen that there are limits to what people can do, even on the upper end. And that's okay. But if we're not going to look at that honestly, so the natural consequence is people are sort of, I think there's the two sides of it's the like, work as hard as you can visibly for the
Yeah.
symbols of dedication. The product is less important, but also the scale of what you can say is more valuable than like the small individual steps of your actions because that's easier to pay attention to. It's easier to rep on social
Hmm.
media. It's easier to get a big flashy investor
Yeah.
bought in on emotionally. And I think that seeps through a lot of our mindsets a lot more deeply. Even people who go, oh, yeah, that's all stupid. I'm like, yeah, but you're kind of doing that. If we go and identify a problem and your instinct is like, oh, I'm going to fix it all. I'm going to do all this. And it's like, you're not
Yeah.
realistically, you're going to burn out. And maybe, yeah, that pointing out explicitly that approach is the hey, it's actually okay, and it's probably more feasible to do this in small steps too. And that
Yeah.
aligns with systems engineering. I mean, that's the whole mindset, right? If you take a big, seemingly impossibly complex problem, often with not enough resources, but when you break it down into enough small independent systems and steps, you can go, actually, we can get there. It just may take some time, and we're going to be
Hmm.
patient, and we're not just going
Hmm.
to light a giant pile of money on fire to do it. Yeah, and in our personal spaces, that pile of money is much more often our health or our mental well-being of we're just
Yes.
light
Yes.
it all on
So,
fire to try and pretend that we're doing it until it runs
yeah.
out. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And it is
yeah,
limited.
that
Yeah,
makes
and like
sense.
with those things, I mean, I'm always like, okay, like also how do we go back to like what message we've internalized about that? Like, oh,
Yeah,
like, like I'm gonna do it all, or like, yeah, you have to work as hard as I did, like, and what is like what's under that? Is it like do you did you just learn that and think that that's how everyone has to be, or like is
yeah,
maybe there's a different value that might emerge and it's like, oh, I really value like collective well-being or the team, right? That's gonna help guide us towards different, towards different things, right? And to say, even if you have that mindset that you've internalized, oh, I gotta do it alone, right? Like,
yeah,
but we also can notice those things and then begin those shifts, right, towards other things. So,
yeah,
but there has to, yeah, for sure, be that willingness,
yeah,
um, to,
totally. Yeah.
yeah, to,
And that makes me think of too from a position just as a leader, because I
mm-hmm,
often see leadership sees, hears messages like this and go, oh,
yeah,
absolutely, let's do it.
yeah,
It's going to cost a lot to switch. We're all going to have to pitch in. And I'm like, no, no, no,
yeah,
no, no. If you as a leader want to bring people into that shift, you have to do it yourself first, and you're not going to be able to do it perfectly. And so you have to be the first one in to the breach to kind of fill those gaps of, yeah, I see this as it'll be a continuous thing as we grow
mm-hmm,
and be very careful about that. But like the flip side of that is because I sort of stand, the product speaks for itself, but and
mm-hmm,
at the same time, this isn't the flashy look of the, oh, look at all these people grinding 70 hours a
mm-hmm,
week and that a lot of, like on the tech side, a lot of investors, they just emotionally are looking for that. I mean, when I was working in games, we had the game we were working on got delayed because of our original producer publisher
mm-hmm.
shenanigans. We had to split ways with them at the end of COVID when they kind of knew it just wasn't healthy and sustainable. And so that meant delaying the game. And we're like, okay, we'll go find another publisher. And our game was built that same way. And so we were able to do a lot more with a lot less than is typical in the industry, where it can look kind of unbelievable, but there's all of the evidence to back it up. There's detailed, you know, documentation and planning and all this stuff. And I met with publishers for 2 years. I won't call them any of them out individually, but everyone under the sun. I had multiple stage conversations about them picking it up and providing the last little bit of cash to close the gap. And we never found a publisher, but I think in large part it was because it was just so antithetical to their model. They're like, this didn't cost enough, and this can't be real. And we couldn't make enough because we can't like make the argument that we put in all the money, so we get to keep all the money. And I don't like this. What have we been investing in if this is possible? And people would say, "Oh, well, maybe your game it just wasn't well made. What about the technical fundamentals?" We never had a single conversation where somebody sat down and was like, "Oh, show us your planning documents. Show us how you can be sure you're going to hit your timelines." Nothing. It was all like, I hate to say it, but it was basically vibe checks all the way up, where we'd talk to a producer at the publisher and they'd ask us the same questions that could have been answered if they had read the pitch deck. And then they'd go off and we'd hear from them in 3 weeks and they'd bring in an even higher, like an executive producer, and they'd ask the same three questions. And then they'd go off again and like, oh, we just can't fit it into our budget. And we're like, you don't even know what we've never once talked about any of the things that you would, think of to make a responsible business decision. But so much of it is that like, I just don't believe they're grinding the way you should be. Because I think games in particular has a problem with that sort of idolizing the mentality while also publicly saying, oh, we don't stand
Wow.
for that. But internally they absolutely still do as a culture. And it was floored to, and so, in the same space here of recognizing like, okay, we're going to
Hmm.
do this, but it will make us sort of anathema to a lot of bigger investors, but maybe we don't need that. Maybe if we can be responsible and I
Yeah.
can put myself in first of sometimes I do have to work more to close the gap for my team to keep them in that space. And I'm very careful to bound that and recover appropriately. But I'm always the first one to do that to try and prevent that from hitting my team because I don't think as a leader you can ask people to try something new and different if you're not willing to be the first person to get in there and figure it out and also be the first one to like close the gap when you haven't quite figured it out yet. And I think that's not something not a lot of leadership I talk to in the space is excited about hearing that, but I'm very big on that of like you can't expect it to actually you can't expect to have a healthier place that puts your people first if you're not the first one there acting like you believe that. It's not enough to just say that and then go, you all figure it out now. Also, here's 10 times
Yeah.
more work than last week. Good luck.
Yeah. 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 No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that that's like part of your, your core ethic, right? That's like what you're leading with and sharing and guiding and, and
Yeah, it's
sharing with
important
other
to
leaders. Yeah.
I think I've had to spend a lot of time on the fringes of
Hmm.
industry, a lot of it by choice, some of it
Hmm.
not. Just
Yeah.
because I don't fit the picture of, especially this late in my career, I don't fit the picture on paper of a stereotypical, extremely experienced systems engineer and developer.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't view it as, well, I could do it, so everyone else. I view it as I want to be the last person I'm ever involved with who had to push themselves this hard. I
Mm.
want to build a thing to put an end to this, at least for the people I can get in touch with and bring into my circle. I'm very gifted. I feel like I'm very fortunate to be able to see as much and learn as much as I can. And I don't want to expect that of other people. Just to be able to live their gifts. I want to use my own talents to lower that bar for the next group of people instead of raising it behind me. So
Yeah.
important.
It is. I share that and want that too, for our communities and our families and our young ones and ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
wonder
what
if you
you're
see that in your communities too. I notice that so often, even people who
hmm
who speak in really supportive language, I think it's just an
yeah,
innate human. We just tend to want to raise a moat behind us because it makes us feel safe psychologically, but in reality, it's like, well, no, the more people there are in this space with us, the safer we are, the more community we have, even if everyone else is telling you, build the moat, be the sole expert in your space, be the only one who knows it all. Make it harder to get at your skills. And it's like, I don't think so. It's really lonely when you do that. I don't like that. I'm
yeah.
not doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it definitely feels, I mean, at least in my life, it's like it feels like there's much more. But I'm like, I feel, I mean, I'm curious too. I imagine you maybe feel this way, but I'm curious. Like, I just feel like there's so many badasses around me who are like, have like really done their own work,
Yeah.
have really gone through the things they've gone through and, have really like are in these moments or like just really wanting to like show up, support community, do it in these ways that, are intentional and, kind of honor the community, but also oneself. Like there's just so much wisdom, I feel like, all around us. And it feels like we really are, yes, technology and AI and all of this, and there's all these problematic pieces that are happening, but I also feel like there's so much pain and there's so much but there's also so much beauty and like clarity and these kind of ways that I feel like people have been like calling for a long time, and it's like those things are also emerging, like and it's interesting seeing like I think like things that maybe people were like just thinking about for a long time, now it's like this phase of like how do we actually do more of them, right? I mean, and there are
Totally.
different models of people really doing the community, these different ways, mutual aid, right? These different things in the
I
community. But it's like
exactly.
we're gonna just keep, needing more of them, right? As we're
Well,
gonna like we
I
need more
say
of them,
what
right?
I would
And
say is
and it's
I
happening.
kind of love AI partly because I
Yeah.
think everything it is both incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous at the same time because it's human language
Mm-hmm.
in crystallized in a single thing. And I think a common misconception people have is that it's like a big database and you're searching it, and it's not. It is truly an abstract cloud of individually meaningless data points that has encapsulated our knowledge, our communication as humans, which personally, just on a philosophical level, I think it's really cool because it says some really amazing stuff about how we communicate across as people across cultures, across languages that, the really, it's like, it like puts the final nail in the coffin of the old, in college, the stoner thing of like, wait, what if the red you see isn't the red I see, man? And it's like, no,
Yeah.
actually, this is proof that the things, the ideas, the concepts, the
Mm-hmm.
feelings, the desires we're communicating, they all have common meaning. And that's really cool, but it also means it's really good at, large bureaucratic waste, grind mindset, people who
Mm-hmm.
engage with it. Well, yeah, of course it will feed and amplify that 10x and bury it under even more weight because it's just mirroring that back at you. But for the people who see it as, oh, this is a weird new way to get at human knowledge and help me learn and see things and break down those barriers of sort
Mm-hmm.
of those moats of social, elitism. I think it's like kind of the best tool to tear that stuff down in a way, but it takes learning and training and careful. It won't do it for you. It's not, I mean, this is the age-old problem of computer intelligence. This isn't new. We've had this problem since the 60s when the field started. It's not intelligent in the sense that it is not fully sentient as a human. It doesn't encapsulate all the facets of human intelligence, but it adds another one that now can bring crystallized knowledge to us in new, different ways, very, very
Mm-hmm.
fast and very interestingly. And like, I mean, for me personally, so on this too, I've always loved music. I have a piano here by my workstation. I have never seen myself as particularly musical. I was always told I wasn't particularly gifted at it. And most songs
Yeah.
that I know I learned basically by brute force. But I'm an artist. And so I know I'm a, classically trained illustrator. I do concept art. I know all the rules of composition and color theory and all of that. And one day I was kind of like, wait a minute, if I can do that and I can play a song, maybe I maybe I can do music and nobody's ever taught it to me. And I went to the AI and went, hey, I'm a professional illustrator with all this experience and I'm well versed in all this. I can
Yeah.
play the piano. And I was like, explained what I can play and how I got there. But I don't understand music. I always just assumed I wasn't musical. That's what I had been told. Is that true? And he goes, no, you've just never been told. I'm like, okay, can you map the concepts over for me? Do they map over? And it goes, oh yeah. And it starts listing out. So in illustration, when we talk about composition, we need these things. It actually just means these things in music and color theory. is a circular perceptive thing about how we perceive color and the emotions it triggers. And we have the circle of fifths in music. And I'm sitting here like, why didn't anybody ever explain this to me?
Wow.
And it was such an effective way to, naturally as we become experts in things, we often come up with new language to describe those things, to make communicating ideas more efficient. But it can have a knock-on effect of also creating this sort of wall of inaccessibility around areas of knowledge that isn't always just about efficiency. And if you don't have the right, and I'm sure any musician listening to this is going, well, duh, how did you not realize that? I never had anyone in my life who just mentioned anything about this even passively for 30 years that would have made me think, oh, here's how I learn, here's how I go understand how to write music. I just never had that. And I know there's millions of other people like me with that, maybe with art, maybe with music, maybe with who knows what, because the words themselves can feel imperceptible if you don't have that person to help you climb over it initially and sort of demystify it. And so
Yes.
this is kind of, to me, that's one of the things that's really amazing about it is it can really help tear down those barriers for the people who don't have that in their life. And it's not going to be able to teach you to be a master by itself, but it doesn't need to. It gets you, it just points you in the right direction.
Yeah.
It can be a wonderful thing. And I think that is something truly new for the first time that we have. And I hope to see more things pushing in that way instead of, but but I,
Yeah.
I I think for me, like even as an artist, there's a lot of, oh, AI will replace the artist. And I'm like, no, it won't. I've been an art director for years. It's a terrible production artist. Absolutely not. But what I have seen is people who try making art with AI and go, oh my God, this is really fun. Maybe I can kind of do this, but I don't have enough control with the AI tools. Well, maybe I'll learn some basic Photoshop. Maybe I'll learn some simple painting so I can change what it generates. Actually, I just want to kind of paint from scratch. It's an amazing, again, just that way of like, wait, maybe I can do this. Maybe this isn't as hard as I've always been told. Maybe it's not as this like only certain people can do it. And
Yeah.
I am really excited for that and to see how that inspires people. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that story, that example. Um, um, so again, just wanting to like say I really am grateful that you're doing the work you're doing. I'm still sitting with is, well, two. I have two questions. One's going to be maybe a hard one.
I mean,
Okay, one is, when we think about AI and like data centers, and I believe you're in Colorado, right? And
yes,
right, just like there's a lot of, even just the recent win, for many, for the communities around like the pause on building
been
the
great
centers.
to see. Yeah,
Yeah, and like, so just what do what are some of your initial thoughts on like what alternatives are, right? How do we be more
absolutely.
responsible around this, right? Because we know that it's especially right in some of the places that they're building, trying to build it in Denver, where it's like there's a healthcare center and there's schools and there's housing and all these things, and it's already poor, lower income
Yep.
communities that are being impacted in all these ways.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
obviously, yes, not a great place to build a data center, no, by any means, right?
No.
But what are some, like even I mean this connects to like fracking and just kind of like lots of things, but how do you what are some of those initial thoughts and how we're not like AI is not stopping, right? These things are already trends that are moving, but how do we think of this more responsibly, more
So
ethically,
it's both a very simple question and also a very boring answer, which is, I think the
Mm,
real answer is that this is not new. Um, this isn't new. This is this is this is not new, and we've been dealing with this actually for decades. People are quick to go, oh, it uses so much water, it uses so much power. I'm like, it actually probably uses less than when you sit there and watch Netflix for 6 hours. Every time you watch a streaming service, that is being run on a data center. Your email, your app that you use, your social media, this isn't a new problem. This has been a problem for decades. And what's happening with AI is I think because AI is the confluence of it's a very emotionally resonant. It hits a lot of different points at once, and so it's easy to
yeah,
bring it into the news. But these problems aren't new. These are failings of legislation, of zoning, of corruption that have been. They didn't just suddenly show up with AI. They've been here,
yeah,
and people have been trying to fight them and not having much luck. And so I'm really excited to see this groundswell because I also fundamentally reject the idea that this scale of rollout makes sense. I think the way we're using AI right now at the large scale these big companies are pushing, it doesn't
Mhm.
make sense. It's trying to brute force. It actually reminds me a lot of the first generation of microprocessors when, we sort of had the word processors as early computers and they were like, oh, it'll automate everything in your business. And they're like $8,000 a piece. And it was like Microsoft Word, but bad because you buy one program to add copy paste, and you'd buy another program to like I can open two documents at once. It costs me $90 to do that.
Mhm.
And then we went, wait a minute, this is ridiculous and not sustainable. And we had a kind of a bubble break. And then people came back. We came to the next generation of computers, which was, oh, maybe we can make these generic programming languages and we start to build these multi-purpose applications. And then it kind of went from there. And I think that's going to happen with AI. I think, and I think they know that. I think the investors, it's not cluelessness. They know this is how it played out before. They're willing to burn ungodly amounts of money and do ungodly amounts of damage just to get to sit on top of the pile whenever that happens. Um, so it's not necessary. It's not going to be this way long term. It's just not. What the real answer, though, is how do we do it better is, well, there are better answers. We can make data centers use less water by using closed loop cooling systems and mandating that, but they're more expensive. We can make them not disturb communities by, I mean, ideally, not even allowing them to be built in communities. Why the hell is that even an option? But then even further, you know, having there are ways to dampen sound, but it's expensive. And if they're really claiming, oh, this is going to make all the money, well, great, then you shouldn't mind investing
Then
all
there's
the
money.
money. But they're not going to take that route unless they're told to. And they're not going to do that unless people get involved in their local communities before it becomes a problem. Because by then it's too late, because the person involved, the people on the board making the decision, they're already corrupt assholes who've been there for years. They're not new, they're not suddenly there. They're a little surprised that everyone's suddenly paying attention to them, but it's not going to be enough to shift it. And so
Mm.
my thing to people with that is just know that like it's no different than any other technology. There are horribly inefficient and deeply efficient ways to use it. We pride ourselves on having worked really hard. We don't use a single, so we have something called it's neurosymbolic AI. So it uses a hybrid of traditional symbolic intelligence computing systems, and then we use the language part as sort of a fuzzy logic coprocessor, we call it. Basically, it's helping translate the abstract math into what feels like a conversation. As a result, we don't have a single AI model we
What
run.
what you just mentioned, that's how AI is working in general?
No, that's how we're
Oh,
doing it. So
in
most
your
systems right
company.
now are
Okay.
they are pure LLMs, so they are purely using linguistic reasoning, the
Okay.
meaning in words chained in reasoning to arrive at a
Okay.
conclusion. So
Okay.
when you open ChatGPT and you ask it a question and it's in
Mhm.
thinking mode, it goes, "Oh, I'm thinking." It's not thinking. Behind the scenes, it is babbling to itself in an unending stream of text for thousands of words like a madman in the corner.
Mm.
And then it's summarizing that and going, I decided on this, but it was actually and it's basically they're just hoping by brute force and that starts to mean you can't get some interesting results with that. But it is the equivalent of trying to solve a problem by writing out every single step of your thought process in words along the way. It's really inefficient. It's not how we work. It's not how any, living thing works. So we take it a step further and go, okay, well, ours is about conversations. We will build a very simple model of human conversations as an abstract math problem. And as that changes and flows, we can use the AI is really good at taking, here's a concept, turn that into language. So we can then use that to bridge the gap.
Mm.
As a result, our AI models are so small that, I mean, you could load it up on like my computer behind me and run it, whereas most of these big flagship models are on massive servers.
Wow.
It's deeply inefficient. So that's the other side of it too, is
Okay.
reject this idea that like these AI companies are going, well, we just have to make them bigger. Every new version has to be bigger. We need more data set, more compute. And it's like, no, that's the fastest way to get something that looks impressive.
Mm.
You could be required to take your time to build something effective and efficient. But again, that only happens when people, I mean, the other side of it, and this is hard, is saying, I hate AI, I'm never doing anything with it. It's horrible. It's never going to do anything. It's like that's
Mhm.
sticking your head in the sand. It is having an effect on people. It is having a positive effect. It's having a lot of negative effects too.
Yeah.
It is really uncomfortable to dig in and actually understand a thing rather than just going, I'm better than that. I'm not getting involved. But like we've learned, prohibition rarely has positive outcomes on society. What really makes an effect is to understand the thing and then to push for there is a way to do it well. We need to ask for that. We need to push for that. And that's harder and it's boring. The reality of it here, I'm saying, like, the answer is get involved in local government and understand the technology you use. But at the end of the day, that is the real answer. And so to some like long-winded question, but I think the real answer is I think it's all solvable. I don't think it's any of it's new, any of it's unique. Some of this is stuff that's actually been happening for decades. AI has just turbocharged it. And I'm really excited to see it getting people involved in this thing because this has been in these data centers have been getting built near neighborhoods for decades. Maybe not at this rate, maybe not at the scale, but it's been happening.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where we finally get the push to kind of stop that and put a cap on. I mean, these AI companies are, I mean, and it's not just AI companies, tech in general is the most obscenely profitable industry in the world in terms of an employee to profit ratio. They can afford to be a little bit more responsible, but I think we view tech as this like unimpeachable, impossible to understand thing. Sit down with the AI model and ask it to explain in simple terms, and it will actually help you go, wait a minute, this isn't that fancy. Okay, yeah, we can ask some things of them. It's not going to collapse if we require
Yeah.
they. And a whole bunch of CEOs just, shuddered in fear as I'm again, like that's why I'm
Yeah.
like, fine, I'll build a thing and prove it. Like,
Yeah.
look at ours. It's built responsibly, like we walk people through when they sign on as customers. We're like, legitimately look at this. And they go, oh. Then you have to ask, wait a minute, why? Oh, everyone else is doing it the other way because, oh no. So there's not an immediate, like, make you feel good answer, but it's also not a new problem. This is something as a society we've faced over and over again. And in the long run, you know, I think we tend to move in the right direction. So give it time. I think we'll get there here too. And I'm just excited to see people actually caring about local regulation. I'm
Oh my
I'm a
gosh.
local government nut, and so it
Yes.
makes me really happy to be like, everybody
People are
getting
showing
involved.
up.
Yay, keep
And there's
going.
more of us that, for us to continue to join that, like
Yep.
people are showing up and fighting. And yeah,
Yep.
Greenhouse Connection. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're doing such great, like,
Yeah, it's
advocacy work. There's just so
wonderful.
many folks. Yeah.
It makes me
So,
so happy to see. And
yeah.
that's what I would say
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
first, I'm a big believer of there's
Mhm.
truly nothing that we as humans cannot learn to at least some capacity. But the biggest, and I mean that of any subject, you can grasp a basic understanding. You may not be able to discover new things. You may not be able to understand it as an expert. You don't have to
Yeah.
for most things. The biggest decider of whether you're going to be able to affect change, you're going to be able to take meaningful action in life, whether you're going to be able to learn something, is if you have decided before you do it that you can't learn it. And there's a lot of experts out there who are really invested in making you think you can't learn anything about what they know so they can stay the isolated experts. And like that doesn't mean you can replace, a good skilled doctor. It doesn't mean you can't replace a good skilled engineer, but it doesn't mean you can't have a basic conversation about
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like instead of just going, sure, whatever, I don't understand, it's scary and big. And I think that holds really true with these systems and these data centers. Like there are some really simple things we can do. It's been done in the past. We can do it here too. The companies will be fine. And if they
Well,
won't, then they really didn't deserve to live because isn't that the whole point? If we're going to have to be stuck under capitalism, then we should at least allow the ones that are not able to function responsibly to collapse and go away. It's
I
like,
know, I know.
stop it. You can't have it both
Yeah,
ways.
I agree. I agree. And hopefully we, are going to are moving in that direction, right? We might
I
still
think
have
so.
some like rough spots and, some hurdles to get through, but it does seem like this is a moment to move, and to
No,
keep pushing to move in that direction.
it's been really good
Um,
to see. And
hmm
yeah, and I'll be excited to see where this new technology goes because this is
yeah,
truly, I grew up with Star Trek. I loved it. I mean,
yeah,
my God, we have the Star Trek computer as it's a thing we could build right now, and that's so cool. But it's not going to happen as long as we're still in this phase of just bigger, bigger, more money, and we need
right.
people to sit down and do real work, and that's harder and it's slower and it's not as flashy, but that's the stuff that makes real positive change for people's lives.
It is. And I just want to, as we are wrapping up, you mentioned that idea of like you can't learn that, you can like figure this out. Like that is, I mean, that really dovetails well with like the work that I get to do with folks and around somatic and embodiment work because it is about remembering and learning to like listen to ourselves, right? Like
Exactly.
we have these bodies, we have these minds, we have these hearts, right? Again, and like the way I see it and have like, is that we've so many of us have grown up since we were very little told to ignore all of that, to like be disconnected from that, right? To we have like this inner, even the idea of like intuition or trusting, like permission to listen to yourself, to like
Exactly.
to know that what you're feeling and sensing is valid and it's right, like there's so much of that has been like trained out and kind of minimize like in the way that our this kind of culture operates broadly. It's like no, disconnect, like you don't know, right? Like you need to buy these other things, you need to seek these other outside things to get to those answers. So a lot of that, like the work that I get to work with people around is with young people or folks who are older, whatever our age is, like that, like it is the slowing down just a little bit to be like, oh yeah, I have the answers. The answers are within, right? And slowly it's like remembering some of those
Yep.
pieces, right?
My
And
favorite motto in systems engineering, and it's
yeah,
Silicon Valley's is move fast
yeah,
and break things, and I think that's awful. And mine is always, as a systems engineer, it's slow is smooth and
flow is smooth.
smooth is fast. Because
Yes,
at the end of the day, it feels counterintuitive, but when you slow down and you do things carefully and sensibly and responsibly, you can do them smoothly. And in the long run, it
it's
takes a
fast.
lot less time to get where you're going. And it's a lot
I
less of a mess.
I think that's why we're here on this call together because my one of my sayings, my business slow integration coaching is go slow to go far, go slow to go farther, faster, right? It's like so um as we last question. So you
Sure.
said your company, Skills Sage,
Yes.
is about learning skills, right? Some of these
Yes.
soft skills. What are some of the soft skills that you
Yeah.
share,
So
that you teach?
the
Yeah.
way that it works is we have a free version for anyone that they can
Okay.
use as it's a mobile app. You can download it, iOS or Android. We have a
Hmm.
big skills library. We're always adding more. So whether that's you want to practice an interview, you want to get better at, maybe you're a salesperson and you want to practice that. You want to learn how to do, I think we have one on conflict management coming out soon for team leaders of how to navigate that. Um, if it's a skill that involves talking with another person, you can practice it. And so that's kind of the main version. And then for businesses and institutions, we have it's available on anything, web, native desktop, even VR. You can have the trainer be physically in your room and talk to them voice to voice, and practice those scenes there. And then they're also able to, we have a really simple dashboard that lets you create your own scenes. And then when you'll get feedback at the end of it of what you did well, what you need to improve on, and then you can hop over and there's little bite-sized lessons that take about 5 minutes to do each one. It's kind of structured similar to Duolingo. You'll have your typical multiple choice, but you'll also have open-ended stuff. You might see an exchange between two people and then be invited to go, hey, how could this person have done better next time? And then get that feedback around like, yeah, that was good, but maybe think about this too. This would have been an option. It's it's been super cool to see. It's been going fast. We're talking with a lot of both businesses that want to better invest in their people and not have training be a once a quarter thing, mostly for compliance. And then at the same time, a lot of schools are super excited about this too, because I think this is often an underrepresented skill. It's been really hard to teach at scale in the past, but I think
Mhm.
it's so important and it's often sort of the invisible divider between people who get to succeed and find themselves in the right rooms and the ones who don't. And so, yeah, we're here to close that gap. And the big part of it too is we want to make sure that, maybe you get to use it at work and you go, that was really helpful. Great. It's not locked behind just being at companies. Download the free version and keep practicing if you're not there anymore and bring it with you and just keep growing. That's kind of our
Cool.
hope.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to download your app.
Yeah.
Cool.
SkillSaige.com, SAIGE. Sage is our virtual trainer you get to hang out with and talk to.
Cool.
And it's very fun.
Great. Well, it's yeah, great to chat with you and meet
Wonderful
you
too.
and
Yeah, thanks so much for
just
having me on. This has been
chat.
really nice.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Take good care. Have a good
All
rest
right,
of your
you
week.
too. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.